Now, first of all, I would be lying if I said that this is something that I thought I would do in this year. I made the decision to move to Dubai literally 3 weeks. So the idea visited, and in 3 weeks, my bags were packed, and I was on an 8-hour flight moving across the borders to Dubai. And I'm going to tell you all about it and how all of that has happened and has literally just been an act of obedience toward God and what has come about that. So let's get into this video. Fingers crossed for no tears. But let's get into this video. You guys sent me a couple questions. Some of them are not Dubai related, so we might have to do another video on that one. So the first thing that I'm going to discuss is moving to Dubai, so specific questions related to my actual move. Then I'm going to talk about living in Dubai. I've been here for almost 4 weeks. Living in Dubai, the culture shocks, the people, the dating. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Living in Dubai, and then the third part I'm going to talk about is the community and the social life, making friends, yeah, all of that kind of stuff. The weather, working out, expenses, all that. And then the last part that I'm going to talk about is for anybody that is an aspiring mover, somebody that wants to move, whether it is to Dubai or anywhere in the world, as well as those that would like to visit Dubai. And I'm going to share a little something for you guys towards the end of the video, especially if you're looking to either move or visit. So do stick around to the end of the video. First of all, moving to Dubai was not on my vision board. 2024, absolutely not. That was not even the thing. Actually, I planned to move to Cape Town initially. I always imagined that when I do move abroad, it would be for work, like working for somebody, or maybe studying, you know what I'm saying, under something where it's like it's guided, not just like me packing up my life and go figure it out. Like that's absolutely insane, like to even fathom. But God had different plans, as he as he usually does. And so it wasn't on my vision board. I first visited Dubai in October, exactly this time last year. That's what makes this insane. This time last year, I was in Dubai visiting for the very first time, and that was my first time ever leaving Africa. And that was my first trip, and it was a solo trip. I don't know who I am, but I know who he is, because I couldn't tell you. My personality is not set up like that, like just like, oh, I'm gonna take. But also, there's just something beautiful about trusting God and being obedient toward God, and knowing that this world belongs to him and everything in it. So even when he moves you or he calls on you, or you have an idea, and I'm going to talk about how I knew that God was allowing me or telling me to move. I'm going to talk about that. But understanding that all these things belong to him. So there's no way in the world where I could go where I'm not under his guidance, his love, his mercy, his grace. And so it takes away the fear. And if I do have fear, I submit it to him, because if he's calling on me to do anything and he wants obedience out of me, then I know that I'm going to be protected all the way through, and I don't have to stand and think that, oh, I need to protect myself. No, that's God's role to play. That's not my part to play. And so that's how I live my life, and that's how I think. And so visited Dubai October for the very first time. My first visa was for 30 days. I didn't go through an agency. I did it myself. I got the visa myself. So literally through research, went online, figured out how to get the visa. I applied for the visa, which cost me, my first initial visa cost me, I'm going to put the price up here because I don't remember, but I think it was something like $100 and something. Yeah. So I paid for the visa, I paid for my flight, and my flight was probably between 13,000 to 14,000 rands at the time, as well as I paid for my accommodation. I stayed at a hotel, which is actually just down the road. Absolutely insane. But if you do want to see the vlog of all of that, you can go and check out my Dubai vlog that I posted on my second channel. I'm going to link it down below in the description box. So that was the first time that I ever visited Dubai, and that was by myself. And I'd never left Africa, and I'd barely traveled. I had only been to South Africa, only been to I'd been to Botswana, and I'd been to Zimbabwe and Seychelles, because I went to Seychelles with my best friend's family, and those are the only places I'd ever been to before I decided that I was gonna take a solo trip abroad. So first full week of me staying in that hotel, I was literally locked up in that room, crying my eyes out, because it was very overwhelming for me, and it was a big change, and I didn't know what to do. I was very scared. To even leave my hotel room. So I would just go downstairs, have my breakfast, come back up, and literally stay in my hotel room the entire time and cry my eyes out, call my best friend on Zoom and cry day in, day out, cry myself to sleep, because it was just extremely uncomfortable for me, and I couldn't believe what had even made me make that kind of decision. But then the beauty of how life works and how God works is that anytime He calls on us to do anything that brings about discomfort, it puts you in a position to trust Him more and to truly, really believe and know that this is not by my own strength, nor is it by my own intelligence, and I really need to lean on God with everything that is. And so that's exactly what I did. And so in the second week, that's when I actually started living and like actually being on what was a holiday, but it really wasn't a holiday because I never really take a holiday, because every time I say I take a holiday, I work. So I don't think that is even a concept in my head. I'm still working on it. I know it isn't great, but I'm working on it. So that's what that was. Second week, I started doing things, activities, all that stuff. I found activities through research again. As I said, do stick around to the end of the video, because I'm going to let you know how to go about that and how I can be of help for you if you want to do that. And so that's what that was. That was the first time I ever visited Dubai. I went back home, cool. Didn't plan on moving. Did not plan on moving. Did not plan on, because I said, listen, good experience, decent. And then February of this year, my best friend celebrated her birthday here in Dubai. So we're like, oh, where's everywhere we can go where, you know what I'm saying, visas aren't like a stress and all the things, Dubai. So we were here in February for her birthday, which was chef's kiss. We were here for like a week or like 5 days. Absolutely insane. We had such an amazing time. Girls trip, you know what I'm saying? And also just being around people that love God, people that, you know, we wake up in the morning and we do Bibles, we read the devotional together and things like that, like praying together, like those things, and just laughing and having such a good time. Those things are so precious to me. And so it was my best friend, her sister's friend, and then her friend, and then me. So it was like 5 of us. Yeah, like 5 of us, which was absolutely amazing. And so that was the second time that I was in Dubai, and still I had no intentions of ever moving to Dubai. I would be lying if I sat here and told you that the decision to move to Dubai was something that I had thought or planned or fit. No, the decision for me to move to Dubai was literally, it came about me sitting in my room, and I just kind of moved out of home. So I was staying at an Airbnb, long-term stay, and it was literally in the evening, sitting by my laptop. I'm on the phone with my best friend, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I think I need to move out of here because I'm paying way too much, way more than I should be for a studio apartment. And then I thought to myself, I was like, I've always wanted to move to Cape Town. Maybe I should move to Cape Town. Thought about the decision, and while I'm talking about that, like while on the laptop, all of that, I just said out loud, imagine if I moved to Dubai. And then we both looked at each other. And one thing about my best friend, she's always the person behind my craziest ideas, like always. So I said, imagine if I moved to Dubai. And we were just, you know, chatting. And I was like, and she was like, oh yeah, imagine. And then she was like, why wouldn't you? And I was like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just, you know, I said, we're just having a conversation. This isn't that kind of thing. And we talked about it briefly on the call. But then the more I said it, the more it felt like, why wouldn't you move to Dubai? And it just made sense. Also, just as a person, I did feel like South Africa was I feel like I had served my purpose there. I felt like it kind of felt like, okay, I think I've always known that this was only a stepping stone for me, which is why even within my content creation and all the things, my work has been strategic in terms of like building my audiences all around the world and not really terming it as, you know, the average person would, in terms of like because I'm in South Africa, I only appeal to the South African audience, but I've always positioned myself to appeal to the global audience, which is a lot harder to do than it is when you are, because also how you create your content has to be, you know what I'm saying, it's broad. So you don't really have a niche, whereas when you have a niche, it's easier to figure out what to post and when to post and all the kind of things. And so this has always been a prayer point for me. It's something that I asked God for, to be able to build a global audience. And that's exactly what He's given me. And so I was willing to take the difficulties and the hardships and the challenges, or miss out on opportunities for the sake of that. And also, disclaimer, I know something that I just want to add, because I do get a couple of comments here and there that I do speak fast, and I know I do. I am aware I do. And if you do feel like you want the slow kind of thing, you can always go into the settings and just like slow down the video, because I'm not gonna lie, this is how I speak, and so yeah, this is just how I speak. You know what I'm saying? I don't appreciate videos where it's like slow and it's like, let's get to the point. So yeah. So I still have relationships there in terms of like business relationships and partnerships there. But I think it just felt as though, okay, I think, and also because a lot of my partnerships, even while in South Africa, 90% of the partnerships that I had all came from overseas in countries like Spain, the UK, America, and China. And so it just felt fitting to be like, oh, because most of my work is abroad anyways, there's nothing that is holding me down, you know what I'm saying? And even the relationships that I've formed, I'm able to maintain them while away, you know what I'm saying? So my mind has always been set up in that kind of way. I do not have a house or a rental or mortgage or a car that's holding me down. And also, again, that was also strategic. The way that I know that something is coming from God, or that I know that, oh, this is a decision, or God is calling on me to be obedient toward him for something, or an instruction from God, is that thing usually is something that draws me closer to God. If it pulls me away from God, then it isn't from God. But if it brings me closer to God, if it brings me closer to doing the things that he's spoken about in his word, so the faith that he speaks of, the obedience that he speaks of, when he says in Jeremiah, when he says, and I've always said with God, even when I started doing this work, I said to the Lord, before I started content creation, like, I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know how to talk. I'm afraid of saying the wrong things and being cancelled and all the things. And that was my biggest fear in me doing this work. And every single time, and I still did this work, but every single time he reminds me that it is not you who speaks, but it is I who speaks through you. And so even when I make these videos and all the things, it is not I who speaks, it is him who speaks. So which means that there's no borders to where I can go or where he can place me. There's no, oh, this room is only for these kind of people, or this kind of opportunity is only for people that look like this. No, if God has called on me to be in that space, it is not I who speaks, it is him who speaks. So I don't even have to have the words to know what I'm going to say, to know that God has called for me to respond in obedience to what he's called me to do. And that's how I know that something is calling me, or it's an instruction from God, when it leads to obedience in God, when it leads to trusting God, when it leads to faith in God. And so that's how I knew that, oh, this is an invitation from the Lord for me to do this thing. Now, if you take a look at it, every single thing that I've been doing kind of pieces together because I've been to Dubai. And so he's allowed me that cushion of feeling like, okay, I'm putting you in a place whereby you do have an experience of being there already. So it kind of takes away a bit of the fear. Although I'm in the fitness space and all the things, I'm in the fitness space and all the things. At the end of the day, the things that I'm doing are what is to serve God's kingdom. So that can be fitness, that can be faith, whatever it can be. At the end of the day, whatever gift he has put in me is useful for his kingdom before it is useful for the world. And so when I do think what to do, where to go, making decisions, I think first what is happening up there before I think about what makes sense here. So I don't think so much about like the rules or the laws in terms of like, oh, because there's not so many people that look like me in a space, so I cannot. No, I don't think like him, because those are the things that we make up. Those are not the things that he has said. Those are not the things that are within scripture. And so the things that bring about discomfort are usually the things, and not discomfort where it caters it caters to your fleshly desires, but discomfort where it moves you toward obedience for the growth, your spiritual growth or your spiritual maturity. And that's what this was. And that's how I knew that God was calling on me to do it. Okay. I said there was a time where I started getting scared and started questioning to say, okay, but money wise, like, can I afford it? Everybody talks about Dubai and they say it's expensive. What makes me think that I work for myself, my salary is never the same every single month? Because I'm a content creator, I'm a freelancer, my money looks different every single month. There's good months, there's bad months. And so I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do when it's not a good month? What if I go there and I cannot make friends? What if I go there and a lot of things that are coming up making me afraid to leave? And also because I know not a single person in Dubai. I don't have family here. I do not have family even in this part of the world. Like, so there isn't someone who I can just call up and like they pull up, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. And that was the fear setting in. And the minute I start to feel fear within my spirit, I know that it does not come from God, because the word teaches us and tells us that fear does not come from God. It is not something that comes from the Lord. And so if it does not come from God, whom does it come from? The enemy. So if there's fear within something, and rightful fear, not the kind of fear where it's like, oh, I'm just getting, no, the kind of fear that is a something that creates doubt in you not being able to do a thing, because it makes you think of what you have, or what the resources available to you, and thinking that it is by your strength to be able to fulfill that thing. So once the fear started setting in, the more I got scared, the more that I knew that, oh, I need to do this, because that means that it really is something that God is asking of me to do. And also another thing that I just want to highlight, not being afraid to make mistakes when it comes to God. And so even when you're questioning to say that, oh, is this coming from God? Is this really a decision? The word and God's sovereignty and his goodness allows us to not try to do life by, your life is not a result of having done everything right. Your life is a result of you having made some mistakes at some points, some things you did right, some things you didn't do so right, some things you were at the edge of it. What I'm saying? Like, it is a combination of things. And so not being afraid to make mistakes, because I know that God is sovereign, and even in my mistakes, he's still able to be good. Even in my mistakes or in my errors, even if I was to make the worst decision, he is still good. So my trust is not in me doing the right thing. My trust is in him, because he's able to still be seen. His goodness is still evident, even in my mistakes or in my errors or in the bad decisions that I make. And so not being afraid to make mistakes, to say that, okay, there's nothing in this world. Like, when people say the sky is the limit, or the sky isn't even the limit, I hear that and I see that and I think that way. But also it's like, no, God, like it's not even about the sky being the limit. It's literally that with God, there is nothing that is impossible. That's the bank. That's the way I pull from. With God, there is nothing that is impossible. And so even if this were to be the wrong decision for me to make, let me make the decision, and God show me that, oh, this wasn't the decision to make. And when I make the wrong decision, I'm much closer to what I'm supposed to be doing, to where I'm supposed to be, and all the things, you know what I'm saying? So that same thing, not being afraid to make mistakes, because sometimes life is not about doing everything right. It's not about doing everything the correct way, making the good decision, life is about trusting God and allowing his sovereignty and his goodness to be what leads you in every single decision, from the biggest decision that you make to the smallest decisions that you make between what should I have to eat this morning. And so that is how I live my life, and that is truly living as someone that truly believes that the God that you pray to, God who has said in his word that he would never leave you nor forsake you, indeed, he will never leave you nor forsake you. So even when I make mistakes, he would never leave me nor forsake me. So I don't trust in myself and think, oh, I gotta do everything the right way. No. And I said to Lord, if this is not from you, show me that it is not an instruction from you. So even when you pray to God like that, you listen out for what he's showing you, to say, let me see what things, and the only things that came up for me were things that were showing me that I need to do this. And I started watching videos. Closer to the time before I booked my flight, I started seeing a lot of videos talking about why I moved away from Dubai. I could never live in Dubai. Or you're saying those kind of videos started popping up. Then I knew that, oh, that's the enemy. I experienced a lot of spiritual warfare right before my move. And then I couldn't put into words, like to a point where I considered, like, it was just a weekend, literally 3 days. I think it was after our prayer and fasting that we had in my Bible study group, which I always link down below, and it's in a Discord app. And I experienced this. I was under like some kind of attack, whereby it was literally 3 days, Friday to Sunday. And I have one friend. So I have one friend, besides I have my cousins, all the things who are also my friends. But in terms of like just friends, that's my best friend. My best friend is my one friend that is outside of family. And, and within that time, those 3 days, I couldn't even bring myself to pick up the phone to call her to say, can you pray for me? Can you help me? Can you, I couldn't even bring myself. And I started feeling defeated, feelings of defeat, feelings of like, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? Like, just feeling like ending it all. Like, I truly felt for the first time in a very long time, as someone that has suffered through depression as well as suicidal thoughts and all the things, for the very first time in my life, for the very first time in a very long time, I considered giving up and just quitting and just throwing in the towel. And quitting for me at that moment looked like, what if I just offed myself? and it was just like a build up of just those feelings and all the things. And when you are under attack in that kind of way, spiritual warfare, it's important. That's why God calls on us to build up communities, small communities, groups, having friends, close friends, who you're able to go to say, I need you to pray for me, please can you pray, because they will intercede on your behalf. But also understanding and also knowing that the Holy Spirit intercedes on our behalf, and Christ himself intercedes on our behalf. And so it was actually a whole 3 days. I couldn't pick up the phone to tell anybody, and I just stayed in my room crying my eyes out, unable to describe why I felt that heavy. So the spiritual warfare is also another thing that I can gauge that, okay, I'm about to make either a big decision or something that is significant within my journey. That happened and move past that. I want to talk about that on the podcast because it's long. But just to highlight, that's how I came about making the decision to move to Dubai. And so it was not a personal, I wouldn't say like it was something that it really just was something that I felt called to do in the moment, and I responded in obedience toward God, and here I am. So that's that's what it looks like for me.